Hello, Peter. I wanted to thank you very much for participating in this as well. I know that your time's valuable.
Happy to talk to you.
Sure. I read your book, The Life You Can Save, which is the basis of your foundation. And I was reminded, because of my background in psychology, of an article I read during my undergraduate degree, which was entitled, "There is no such thing as true altruism." And I know that you touched on this in your book, and I wonder what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, well, coincidentally, I'm teaching a class at Princeton at the moment, and I just speaking to the class, two people who have both donated a kidney to a stranger, two people who decided that because they knew that the chances of them needing two kidneys is very small. One of them said, roughly 1 in 4,000, whereas there are lots of people who have to live on dialysis, which is a pretty low-quality life, and have a shorter lifespan than they would if they could get a kidney donated. They both, quite independently, they didn't know each other, decided that they would donate one of their kidneys to essentially the next person on the waiting list. One of them particularly selected a hospital in his city, Philadelphia, that serves African Americans mostly. I find it very hard to see how what they're doing is not altruistic. It's really difficult to see any other motivation for it. And I think they're two of many examples of people who do act with genuine altruism.
You mentioned the philosopher Hobbes, but the psychological research, Straub from 1977, the psychologists within social psychology tend to talk about the private rewards that occur when someone is altruistic. So it may be that empathy itself is the removal. If I'm able to effectively empathise, I can remove the negative feelings of the distress of the other person, or I can have positive feelings about myself that I'm a good person, and that they deem to be self-interest.
Yes, well, firstly, I would say I don't regard that as self-interest. I think the fact that people feel empathy for others and want to help them is a very desirable pro-social kind of attitude that they have to other people. And I think it's completely different from the attitude that people have when they want to either gain material wealth or simply thinking of becoming famous or something of that sort. So I think to say that they're both acting in terms of self-interest is at best misleading, if not simply inaccurate. I think we ought to understand the notion of being altruistic as having that concern and empathy for others. But in addition, actually, one of the two people who are speaking to my class today described himself as autistic. Autistic people are not famous for their empathy for others, to put it mildly. And he felt that, that if he hadn't donated, he wouldn't have troubled him greatly. It might have occasionally crossed his mind, but it wouldn't have, been a serious problem for him to relate to. But he simply thought, having had the issue raised in a philosophy class, interestingly enough, about how much we ought to do to help others, he thought that was the right thing to do, and that was why he acted.
I mean, even though the risks are quite small of having surgery to remove a kidney, and even the lifelong risks are quite small to the donor, you found it quite an extreme thing to do.
I do, actually. You're right. And I suppose, it's the undergoing an operation and the recovery time of that,